Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Good afternoon. The devotional today will be led by former representative and poet Marjorie Ryerson of Randolph.
Thank you, Jill. I can't tell you how emotional it is to be back in this house. I just loved serving, and it's extraordinary to be back here. Jill is right. I am, among other things, I have been a poet all my life, and 2 years ago, a book of my poems was published that I named after my favorite Vermont mountain, Mount Hunger. But currently, a new book of my poems is being published, and it's called Watershed Wanderings, because I have had a lot of involvement with water and protecting water in my life. So I picked 2 poems out of the new book that will be out sometime this fall. This first poem is dedicated today to all of you, very hardworking House members. It's based on the game of tarot cards that you probably all know about. Tarot cards are playing cards that have been used since the mid-15th century at least. And they're individual cards that people draw. And on those cards, they get definitions of who they are. So this is my tarot card reading for all of you. You are juggling infinity. You are a water sprite skating on the surface of oceans. You have sea legs. You think you are shy, but you intimidate others. For you, love is the energy of the earth, stronger than nuclear power. You choose to be in uncharted territory most of the time. You say, "Surprise me." You don't tolerate fools. You say, "Okay, what's next? Give me Everest and I'll strap on my boots." You leap when others run away. You are formidable. You are practical. You assist others through hard issues. You are a teacher. You are shamanic. You live by the alphabet letter each day. Today's letter is M. Your day is shaped by mentor, magic, music. Tomorrow's letter will be G. Fame is simple, but it's also okay for you to take a nap. Don't be compromised. Stick to your guns. You hold the victory card. And the other poem I'd like to read to you is one I picked to read today because of the time we're in, the complexity of the time we're in. And it's called Our Closest Ally. Our closest ally is Lady Hope. She reaches out, holds our hands. She pours critical sips of water down our parched throats whenever life puts its catastrophic grip around our intimate world, whenever any news erases her presence. She gently lifts us out of bed each morning, then stitches feathered silk wings to our backs. She massages our aching shoulders as she tucks us into bed each night. When relentless catastrophes pour into our laps, shattering any sight of our present and our future, Lady Hope sometimes seems to have slipped away on vacation to a remote island. She is so far away, we cannot reach her by phone, letter, or song. But keep the door unlocked. She is close by. She is dedicated to every inch of our fragile beings. Just remember to breathe slowly and to trust. Then welcome her home. Thank you.
Members, we have 11 bills for introduction today. The first is House Bill 462, which is an act relating to approval of an amendment to the Charter of the City of Burlington concerning just cause eviction, introduced by Representative Hooper of Burlington. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 462, an act relating to approval of an amendment to the Charter of the City of Burlington concerning just cause eviction.
Now, the bill has been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. Next is House Bill 463, which is an act relating to technical corrections for the 2025 legislative session, introduced by the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 463, an act relating to technical corrections for the 2025 legislative session.
Now, the bill has been read the first time, and as a committee bill, it is placed on the calendar for notice on the next legislative day pursuant to House Rule 48. Next is House Bill 464, which is an act relating to flood response and the duties of the Division of Emergency Management, introduced by Representative Wozniak of Berry City and Galfetti of Berry Town. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 464, an act relating to flood response and the duties of the Division of Emergency Management.
Now, the bill has been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. Next is House Bill 465, which is an act relating to flood response and financial assistance for municipalities, introduced by Reps. Wozniak of Berry City and Galfetti of Berry Town. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 465, an act relating to flood response and financial assistance for municipalities.
Now, the bill has been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. House Bill 466 is an act relating to flood response and the creation of a voluntary buyout program, introduced by Representatives Wozniak of Berry City and Galfetti of Berry Town. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 466, an act relating to flood response and the creation of a voluntary buyout program.
Now, the bill has been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on General and Housing. Next is House Bill 467, which is an act relating to flood response and the duties of the Agency of Transportation, introduced by Representatives Wozniak of Berry City and Galfetti of Berry Town. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 467, an act relating to flood response and the duties of the Agency of Transportation.
Now, the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Transportation. Next is House Bill 468, which is an act relating to flood response and assistance programs for flood resilient infrastructure improvements, introduced by Representatives Galfetti of Berry Town and Wozniak of Berry City. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 468, an act relating to flood response and assistance programs for flood resilient infrastructure improvements.
Now, the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Environment. Next is House Bill 469, which is an act relating to flood response and the duties of the Agency of Natural Resources, introduced by Representatives Wozniak of Berry City and Galfetti of Berry Town. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 469, an act relating to flood response and the duties of the Agency of Natural Resources.
Now, the bill has been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Environment. Next is House Bill 470, which is an act relating to flood response and flood alert systems for municipalities, introduced by Representatives Wozniak of Berry City and Galfetti of Berry Town. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 470, an act relating to flood response and flood alert systems for municipalities.
Now, the bill has been read for the first time and is referred to the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. Next is House Bill 471, which is an act relating to the transfer of state-owned property in the town of Waterbury, introduced by Representatives Wozniak of Berry City and Galfetti of Berry Town. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 471, an act relating to the transfer of state-owned property in the town of Waterbury.
Now, the bill has been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Corrections and Institutions. And then finally, House Bill 472 is an act relating to professions and occupations regulated by the Office of Professional Regulation, introduced by the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H472, an act relating to professions and occupations regulated by the Office of Professional Regulation.
Now the bill has been read the first time and affecting the revenue of the state is referred to the Committee on Ways and Means pursuant to House Rule 35A. Members, we have a bill on the notice calendar requiring referral to a money committee pursuant to House Rule 35A. That is House Bill 67, which is an act relating to legislative operations and government accountability. Carrying an appropriation, the bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Members, we have a joint Senate resolution to take up at this time. JRS 16 is a joint resolution providing for a joint assembly to vote on the retention of 7 Superior Court judges and 1 magistrate. It was offered by Senator Collmore and was adopted on the part of the Senate. Please listen to the reading of the resolution by title only.
JRS 16, joint resolution providing for a joint assembly to vote on the retention of 7 Superior Court judges and 1 magistrate.
Now, the resolution has been read and it is placed on the calendar for action on the next legislative day pursuant to House Rule 52. Members, we have another joint Senate resolution to take up at this time. JRS 17 is a joint resolution relating to weekend adjournment on March 14th, 2025. It was offered by Senator Baruch and was read and adopted on the part of the Senate. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that when the 2 houses adjourn on Friday, March 14th, 2025, it be to meet again no later than Tuesday, March 18th, 2025.
Now you've heard the reading of the resolution, and the question is, shall the House adopt the resolution in concurrence? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the resolution is adopted in concurrence. Members, we have received requests to read 2 House concurrent resolutions that the House and the Senate adopted pursuant to the consent calendar. The first is HCR 44, which is a House concurrent resolution recognizing July 2025 as Park and Recreation Month in Vermont and designating July 18th, 2025 as Vermont Park and Recreation Professionals Day in Vermont. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas Vermont's park and recreation programs are an integral part of our state and local communities, and whereas their presence in a community promotes an active lifestyle, offers environmental protection, and serves as an economic resource. And whereas park and recreation programs support the effectiveness of therapeutic recreational services for persons with disabilities, and whereas in 1985, the National Recreation and Park Association established July as Park and Recreation Month. And in 2009, the U.S. House of Representatives adopted H.R. 288, a resolution recognizing the importance of park and recreation facilities and expressing support for the designation of the month of July as National Park and Recreation Month. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly recognizes July 2025 as Park and Recreation Month in Vermont and designates July 18th, 2025 as Vermont Park and Recreation Professionals Day. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Vermont Recreation and Parks Association.
And next is HCR 47, which is a House concurrent resolution recognizing March 2025 as National Senior Nutrition Program Month in Vermont. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas approximately 28% of Vermont's population is 60 years of age or older, and according to the Vermont Food Bank, the threat of hunger confronts 12% of older Vermonters. And whereas on March 22nd, 1972, President Richard Nixon signed Public Law 92-258, an amendment to the Older Americans Act of 1965 that established the National Senior Nutrition Program for older Americans. And whereas the impetus for the National Senior Nutrition Program was the recognition that persons in this age group may not eat adequately due to lack of finances and inability to prepare nourishing meals, limited mobility, and feelings of loneliness. And whereas in Vermont, the National Senior Nutrition Program is administered through the State Unit on Aging at the Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living, and the Area Agencies on Aging. And whereas Meals on Wheels is a key element of the National Senior Nutrition Program through its provision of nutritious meals, safety checks, and friendly visits to those at risk of hunger and isolation. And whereas in 2024, 42 Meals on Wheels providers delivered 986,662 nutritious home-delivered meals to thousands of older Vermonters, greatly improving their daily physical and emotional lives. And whereas Meals on Wheels is an important component of Age Strong Vermont, a 10-year program designed to make Vermont a great place for all ages and stages of life. And whereas each March, the Federal Administration for Community Living celebrates the establishment of the National Senior Nutrition Program, and the theme for 2025 is A Place at the Table, recognizing the importance of local nutrition programs and the meals being served across the country. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly recognizes March 2025 as National Senior Nutrition Program Month in Vermont. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living and the Vermont Association of Senior Centers and Meal Providers.
Are there any announcements? Member from Randolph.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank Marjorie Ryerson, who just treated us to a bit of her fine poetry. Marjorie's long list of accomplishments include serving as a professor of journalism and photography at Castleton State College, teaching poetry at Middlebury College at the New England Young Writers Conference, editing the Times Argus's weekly magazine Country Courier, creating her art photography book Water Music, which won international recognition and awards, serving on the Randolph Select Board, and many of you will remember her as former representative from the Orange, Washington, Addison district. Please welcome my neighbor and good friend, Marjorie Ryerson.
Will the former member please rise and be recognized? Member from Essex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Earlier today, during the lunch hour, many of us participated in this year's edition of Early Childhood Day at the legislature. For the 31st year, this group of dedicated service providers, parents, teachers, students, advocates, and caretakers for Vermont's children gathered to share their thoughts about the needs of Vermonters aged 0 to 8 and their families with their legislators. Those of us who attended heard from people around the state about various issues, including medical care for families, early childhood education, emergency and affordable housing, reach-up funding, and many others impacting thousands of Vermont's children and families. It was a pleasure to join them earlier today. Some of the event's attendees had joined us in the House balcony earlier, but some had to get back to the programming of the day. Please join me in thanking this group of committed advocates for the advocacy and commitment for our children.
Will the guest member from Essex please rise and be recognized? Member from Wolcott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. March for Meals, a nationwide effort recognizing the millions of Meals on Wheels volunteers addressing hunger and isolation. Each March, communities across the country come together to support and strengthen the vital services that ensure older Americans receive nutritious meals, friendly visits, and safety checks, critical services to meet their nutritional needs and remain independent. For millions of older Americans, Meals on Wheels is more than just food. It's a lifeline. It represents a connection to the community, a safeguard against loneliness, and a crucial support system for those who might otherwise go without. Demand for these services has never been greater. That's why we must support programs like Meals on Wheels, which make tangible difference in the lives of older Vermonters. I commend the volunteers, advocates, and local organizations that make March for Meals possible. Their dedication ensures that no one has to face hunger or isolation alone. As we recognize this month-long campaign, let us recommit ourselves to policies and funding that strengthen these nutrition programs, ensure every older Vermonter can age in their community. Today, we were joined by Meals on Wheels volunteers and the directors from the Bugby Senior Center from White River Junction and the Montpelier Area Activity Center right here in Montpelier. Please join me in welcoming them to the People's House. They are seated behind me in the gallery.
Will the guest and the member from Wolcott please rise and be recognized? Member from Brattleboro.
Madam Speaker, I move that the Committee on Ways and Means be relieved of H420, an act relating to tax increment financing for flood-impacted communities, and the same be committed to the Committee on Commerce.
The member from Brattleboro moves that the Committee on Ways and Means be relieved of House Bill 420, which is an act relating to tax increment financing for flood-impacted communities, and the same be committed to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have relieved the Committee on Ways and Means of House Bill 420 and committed the same to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. Are there any further announcements? Member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, I'd just like to take a minute to invite members to join me in welcoming a very special friend who is visiting me here today at the State House, Jada Bearden from Colchester, Vermont.
Will the guest and member from Burlington please rise and be recognized? Member from Montpelier.
Madam Speaker, Rep. Casey and I have 3 young constituents in the People's House this afternoon. Please help us welcome Maddie Sleeper, Danny Kirpin, and Haven Tenney Hopkins McGraw. They're here with the Feast Meals on Wheels program. Please help Rep. Casey and I welcome these young guests.
Will the guest and member from Montpelier please rise and be recognized? Member from South Burlington.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to introduce the members of the Vermont Recreation and Parks Association. We all know how important our town and city parks are for the health and well-being of our citizens. They provide gathering places for families and individuals of all ages and economic status, regardless of their ability to pay for access. They provide a place where people can be physically active to reduce stress, which can improve their mental health. They also provide a place where neighbors can meet, which improves community connections. Madam Speaker, please join me in welcoming these civic leaders to the State House today.
Will the guest and the member from South Burlington please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Member from South Burlington.
Madam Speaker, I move that the Committee on Judiciary be relieved of House Bill 342, which is an act relating to protecting the personal information of certain public servants, and that the same be committed to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development.
The member from South Burlington moves that the Committee on Judiciary be relieved of House Bill 342 and that the same be committed to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have relieved the Committee on Judiciary of House Bill 342 and committed the same to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. Are there any further announcements? Member from Barre City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would feel remiss if I didn't recognize one of our members' birthday that recently happened. He hasn't had many, so I think it is important to recognize it. Given the fact that those younger than him might include maybe one rep in a couple pages, I would like for us to wish the other Berry City member happy birthday.
Happy birthday, member. Member from Chittenden.
Madam Speaker, I am not rising to remind folks that March Madness is coming. I am standing here to recognize a member of House Appropriations. Some call him the Dean of House Appropriations, who some years ago started us on the path of a story or a riddle or a joke of the day. And to this day, he still entertains us on the spot when we need a quick start or joke to get going. Madam Speaker, this is a special, special day for that member from Morrisville. We'd like to wish him a very happy birthday.
Happy birthday, member. Member from Fairhaven.
Madam Speaker, Senator Dave Weeks has worked with the Friends of the Vermont State House to develop a high-quality lapel pin for legislators, executive branch, and state employees. These 1-inch diameter pins feature the Vermont state seal, highly detailed enamel on a background color uniquely affiliated with each organization. The House features a red background to match the House chamber color theme. The Senate, similarly, will have a green background. The executive branch, royal blue, and state employees, winter white background. 3 types of backings are available: clutch pin, magnet, and necklace pendant. Pre-orders are now open at $35 each. Proceeds support the Friends of the Vermont State House. You should, in your legislative email box in the legislative lounge, there has been placed an order form for each of us, and we all got emails yesterday. The first wave of orders will close Monday, March 24th. This should allow time for the pins to be produced and delivered before the end of the session. The second wave of orders will be in January of 26. Questions can be directed to Senator Weeks or the Friends of the Vermont State House.
Are there any further announcements? Member from Hartford.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to welcome, I know the group was welcomed as a whole, Meals on Wheels, but the Bugbee Senior Center group from Hartford is here with us today. And I wanted to express my sincere gratitude for them being on the planet, because that's allowed me to be able to leave home to come here, knowing that they check in on my wife every day. So I thank the members of the Bugbee Senior Center for all of their tireless and thoughtful work in our community. Thank you.
Will the guest of the member from Hartford please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, orders of the day. Members, we are going to be taking some bills out of order. There is an amendment on House Bill 2, and we've received requests from the Republican and Democratic caucuses to break for caucus on the amendment. So the game plan is we will start with House Bill 96, and then we will move to House Bill 50, and then we will move to House Bill 141, We will then go back up to the top of the calendar to House Bill 2, hear the report from the committee, and then break for caucuses. We will keep you posted if anything changes, but that's the game plan. House Bill 96, House Bill 50, House Bill 141, House Bill 2. So with that, we will begin with House Bill 96, which is an act relating to increasing the monetary thresholds for certificates of need. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H 96, an act relating to increasing the monetary thresholds for certificates of need.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Next is House Bill 50, which is an act relating to identifying state real property suitable for conversion into affordable housing. The bill was referred to the Committee on Corrections and Institutions, which recommends that the bill be amended as printed in today's calendar. The member from Fairfield, Representative Gregoire, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 50, an act relating to identifying state real property suitable for conversion into affordable housing.
Member from Fairfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. H50 aims to centralize and improve the state's inventory of publicly owned land and buildings, laying the groundwork for potential divestment and underutilized properties which could support housing and other needs. Key provisions of this bill: centralized inventory. The bill directs the Commissioner of Buildings and General Services to consolidate all state-owned land and buildings into the Space Book, which is a book that exists, which is updated annually. Current fragmentation. Currently, records are maintained separately by BGS, AOT, Agency of Transportation, Agency of Natural Resources, and it makes it more difficult for us to assess the full scope of state-owned properties. Vacant and underutilized properties, this bill requires them to be identified so that we can decide whether or not we want to recommend that they be used for other purposes. Future decision-making: once the inventory is complete, the legislature can make informed decisions on how to best utilize or divest these properties. The agency of BGS is amenable to this proposed language change, and is prepared to implement these changes. The committee initially sought to identify state land that could be repurposed for housing. However, the lack of a centralized inventory made it clear that more information was needed before making any divestment decisions. H50 addresses this by creating a comprehensive and accessible database for state properties. We heard from the bill sponsor, the Commissioner of BGS, the Deputy Commissioner of BGS, the Commissioner of Human Resources, and the Project Delivery Business Director of the state of AOT. We voted favorably 10-0-1, and we ask for your support.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Corrections and Institutions? Are you ready for the question? Member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, may I interrogate the presenter of the bill?
The member from Fairfield is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, when our committee was hearing testimony about use of state land and property, buildings and land for affordable housing, was there discussion or testimony about use of state buildings and land for emergency shelter?
Briefly.
Could the member share a little more detail about the testimony?
We briefly talked about the potential for certain buildings and certain places, without being too specific, that could be utilized for such purposes. There was no real in-depth conversation. We had not got that far as we decided to scale back and get the inventory done before we could make a decision on policy.
Thank you, member. Madam Speaker, I'm grateful to our committee, our Corrections and Institutions Committee, for considering the use of state buildings and land for emergency shelter. And I do support this bill. My only concern is that we are in an emergency and that a year may be too long to wait. And so I hope this body will consider other actions that we can take to provide sanctuary for emergency shelter immediately on state land and in state buildings. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Corrections and Institutions? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Next is House Bill 141, which is an act relating to fiscal year 2025 budget adjustments. The bill was referred to the Committee of Conference on the disagreeing votes of the two chambers. The Conference Committee has met and considered the same and recommends that the House adopt its report, which is printed in today's calendar. The pending question is, shall the report of the Committee of Conference be adopted? Member from Middlebury.
Madam Speaker, to orient people, the bill can be found on pages 252 to 297 of today's calendar. As I said in my initial floor report for the Budget Adjustment Act back a few weeks ago, we agreed with the vast majority of the governor's proposed changes to the FY25 budget and only made a few changes designed to assist in aiding our priorities. We found common ground on over 99% of the ways to spend the money we have available. When the Senate got the Budget Adjustment Act, they also agreed with most of the governor's recommendations, but they did make a few more changes that we wanted to discuss with them, hence the Committee of Conference. The Conference Committee ultimately agreed to a bill or a report that continues to agree with about 98% of the governor's proposals. So some of the main changes, this is not all inclusive, but the main changes are that the Senate took another $2 million from that $20 million that the treasurer had for an early bond debt retirement. You may recall that we intercepted the $14 million that was going to go back to the treasurer's office because the treasurer said they didn't need the money. And we agreed with the Senate on using that $2 million, which is to be used for 2 positions at the Human Rights Commission beginning May 1st of this year, 1 additional position for the AG, Attorney General's office, to fight federal changes that will be harming Vermonters, also beginning May 1st of 2025, and $1.8 million for grants to flood-impacted municipalities. We agreed with these changes. They also recommended, and we agreed to, adding another $220,000 to the Emergency Personnel Survivors Benefit Fund, as 3 more survivors needed to make use of the benefit. The Senate added language relating to property tax hold harmless payments to flood impacted municipalities that abated taxes. And there were also a couple of small technical changes involving commas and semicolons. The Committee of Conference consists of 6 members, 3 from the House and 3 from the Senate. The vote of the committee was 5-1, and you can see the signatures on the last page of the report. I hope you will support the committee by voting yes on this report. Thank you.
The question is, shall the report of the Committee of Conference be adopted? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have adopted the report of the Committee of Conference. With that, member from Poultney, due to the time-sensitive nature of this bill, can you please offer us a motion to deliver the bill to the governor forthwith pursuant to Joint Rule 15?
Madam Speaker, I make a motion to suspend rules in order to message our action to the governor pursuant to House Rule 15.
The member from Poultney, I believe, is making the motion that House Bill 141 be delivered to the governor forthwith. Thank you. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and House Bill 141 is ordered delivered to be delivered to the governor forthwith. Members, now we'll head back to House Bill 2, which is an act relating to increasing the minimum age for delinquency proceedings. Whew. The bill was referred to the Committee on Judiciary, which recommends that the bill be amended as printed in today's calendar. The member from South Burlington, Representative Lalonde, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H2, an act relating to increasing the minimum age for delinquency proceedings.
Member from South Burlington.
Madam Speaker, the juvenile justice system handles the supervision, care, and rehabilitation of juveniles accused of criminal acts. Vermont's juvenile justice system has several goals: to protect public safety, to connect youth to age-appropriate services that reduce recidivism, and to shield youth from the adverse impact of a criminal record, helping them become responsible and productive members of the community. The system helps to prevent the taint of criminality from the juvenile defender or offender. To this end, unlike in criminal court, juvenile delinquency proceedings are confidential. In addition, the juvenile is not saddled with a criminal record. While rehabilitating the juvenile is a focus, the system also seeks to ensure protection of the community and accountability to victims. In Vermont, juvenile offenders are brought to family court instead of criminal court. In general, when a person is charged with a criminal offense in Vermont, the court system they enter depends on their age and the severity of the crime. Currently, with some exceptions, if someone aged 10 to 18 is charged with a crime, they are processed as juvenile delinquents in family court. One of the exceptions occurs if they are charged with one of the most serious crimes, such as murder or arson. In that case, their case will start in criminal court. If the offender is over 18, they are processed in criminal court. But for individuals 18 to 21 years old who are alleged to have committed a crime, there is another path to the family court called youthful offender. H2 does not deal with youthful offender, but it is good to have the whole picture. H2 addresses several issues related to treatment of juvenile delinquents. The bill primarily amends the age range for individuals who initially appear in family court in a delinquency proceeding. So I will now take you through the bill. Sections 1 and 2, starting at page 238 of today's calendar, concern the age range of children who can be subject to juvenile delinquency proceedings in the family division of the Superior Court. Under current law, a delinquency proceeding can be brought against a person who is at least 10 years old and not older than 18. If a person younger than 10 commits an unlawful act, the behavior might still be introduced in another type of proceeding, such as one to terminate parental rights. But it could not be the basis of a juvenile proceeding or delinquency proceeding in family court. The only exception to this is that a juvenile proceeding can be brought against a child under age 10 for murder. Section 1 of H2 proposes to change this structure in two ways. First, the bill proposes to increase the minimum age so that a child would have to be at least 12 in order to be subject to delinquency proceedings. The effect of this change would be that delinquency proceedings could not be brought against 10 or 11-year-olds. Second, H2 proposes to repeal the exception for murder so that children under 12 could not be subject to delinquency proceedings for any offense. This change was prompted by a recommendation in a 2024 report from the Racial Disparities in the Juvenile and Criminal Justice System Advisory Panel, otherwise known as RDAP. This change recognizes that children are fundamentally different from adults. Their brains are not fully developed. Young children, regardless of the misconduct, do not have the legal capacity to form criminal intent or the competency to comprehend basic legal principles. The Vermont Defender General's Office provided testimony in support of this change and stated that it would be very challenging to find a youth under 12 years old to be competent to stand trial. Witnesses also noted that in the past 25 years, the exception for 10-year-olds related to murder has not been used. There are other better ways to handle individuals in this age group who break the law. Courts are empowered to order a broad range of services designed to support a child and their family to address any behavioral concerns without criminalizing young children. While about half the country has no minimum age for juvenile court jurisdiction, many of our neighboring states have a higher minimum age than we currently have. For example, New York and Massachusetts both have a minimum age of 12 for children who can be brought into family court, and New Hampshire goes even further with a minimum age of 13 with certain carve-outs. No witness who testified opposed this section of the bill. Moving to section 2, found on page 239 of today's calendar. Generally, jurisdiction over a juvenile ends at age 18, but current law permits a court to extend its jurisdiction if the person committed the offense as an older teenager. For example, if the person was 16 or 17 years old when they committed the offense, the court can extend jurisdiction to 6 months beyond the person's 19th birthday. This permits the Department of Children and Families to supervise and treat the person for a longer period. Section 2 of the bill adds 1 year to this authority. So in the case of an offense committed by a 16 or 17-year-old, the court could extend its jurisdiction to 6 months beyond the person's 20th birthday. And in the case of an offense committed by an 18-year-old, the court could extend jurisdiction to 6 months beyond the person's 21st birthday. During testimony on H2, witness shared that there are missed opportunities for accountability when a juvenile ages out of the system and full adherence to case management plans can't be achieved. When a juvenile ages out of the system, court supervision ends and all intervention regarding that specific case stops. To address this, H2 extends the opportunity for court supervision so there is more time for the juvenile court supervision process to provide rehabilitation and accountability. Turning to sections 3 through 9, starting on page 239 of today's calendar. Sections 3 through 9 propose an additional 2-year extension until July 1st, 2027 on the further implementation of the Raise the Age initiative. Prior to this initiative, most youthful offenders aged 17 or younger could be charged as a juvenile in the family division. Upon passing the Raise the Age law, which was Act 201 in 2018, Vermont became the first state in the country to treat 18-year-olds accused of most crimes as juvenile offenders rather than adults. Based on research that shows young people's brains are still developing well into their 20s, the reform was set to gradually increase the age that youth could be sent to family court where cases remain confidential. As discussed earlier, through the family court process, offenders receive rehabilitative services aimed at helping them avoid future criminal behavior. Young adults accused of serious violent crimes like murder and a handful of other felonies would still be charged in adult court. The state brought 18-year-olds into the juvenile system in 2020. 19-year-olds were set to follow in 2022 but the legislature extended that date by 1 year to July 1st of 2023 as a result of the COVID emergency. And 2 years ago, the legislature extended the date by another year to July 1st of 2024. And last year, the legislature again extended it to April 1st of this year. With the last extension, this body added a reporting requirement to monitor progress by the Department for Children and Families in moving toward the implementation date. Although reports showed some progress on this measure, DCF's last report asked lawmakers this year to pause the move indefinitely. Since the start of this session, House Judiciary has taken extensive testimony focused on understanding the processes involved with juvenile justice and specifically with the long-delayed Raise the Age initiative. The committee heard testimony that covered a range of perspectives on this topic. The Department of Children and Families, Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, and Department of Public Safety called for a repeal of the act raising the age to 19-year-olds. The Office of the Child, Youth, and Family Advocate testified that we should proceed on April 1st. Still others, including the Office of Racial Equity and the Office of the Defender General, testified that the raising the age to 19 is the right approach, but we should only proceed when the change is very likely to succeed. And currently, due to staffing, programmatic and infrastructure inadequacies, DCF is not ready to proceed to this next step. Based on this testimony and on the reporting of DCF, your House Judiciary Committee concluded that now is not the right time to expand Raise the Age to 19-year-olds. Adding 19-year-olds to DCF's workload at this time would stretch already overstretched resources. DCF's ability to supervise and serve the youth already in the juvenile justice system would be hampered. DCF, and specifically the Family Services Division that oversees juvenile delinquents, is already having difficulties with recruiting and retaining staff. In fiscal year 24, the vacancy rate for family service workers rose to 11.4%, with a turnover rate of 16%. So expanding to 19-year-olds at this time would exacerbate this problem by putting additional stress on family services workers. Also, working with 18 and 19-year-olds in this context presents different challenges than working with those who are under 18. Different interventions are needed when individuals in this age group are resistant to treatment or otherwise opposed to changing their behavior. DCF needs the additional time and experience to get those interventions right while working with 18-year-olds currently. The delay will give DCF additional experience in adapting more effective interventions for 18-year-olds before adding 19-year-olds. It will also give the administration and the legislature additional time to develop approaches to improve accountability for those treatment-resistant individuals in the 18-year-old age group, again before adding 19-year-olds. In short, DCF has inadequate capacity and experience at this time to expand, raise the age. More time is needed to make sure the system is ready for the expansion. So sections 3 and 4 delete the April 1st, 2025 implementation date, and sections 5 to 9 reenact the language changes necessary to permit 19-year-olds who commit certain offenses to have their cases start in the family division. These offenses, again, are not part of what we call the Big 14, murder, arson, and similar offenses. These language changes become law on July 1st, 2027, under the effective date provisions in Section 11. This extension gives DCF more time to increase capacity and experience for the expansion. But to check on whether necessary progress is being made, Section 10 of the bill, starting on page 241 of today's calendar, outlines clear reporting requirements to monitor readiness. Section 10 requires the Agency of Human Services to provide the Joint Justice Oversight Committee, as well as several other Senate and House committees, with 2 progress reports on the requirement that the Raise the Age initiative be implemented on July 1st, 2027. These are very similar to the bi-monthly reports that AHS provided over the past year. They must describe the steps taken to achieve such specified goals as establishing a secure residential facility, expanding capacity for non-residential treatment programs to provide community-based services, and improving recruitment and retention of staff. This year, a new provision was added to the report requiring AHS to provide data on the Red Clover treatment facility, including the number of youths who use the facility, their length of stay, their treatment needs, and their racial and gender demographic data. Section 10 also makes clear that the failure by DCF to meet one of these progress report goals cannot be a basis for extending the implementation of the Raise the Age initiative beyond July 1st, 2027. Finally, Section 11 contains the effective dates. A particularly important part is subsection B, which has a March 31st, 2025 effective date for the sections that repeal the Raise the Age provisions scheduled to go into effect on April 1st. This is necessary to ensure that the provisions are repealed before they go into effect. The committee heard from the following witnesses: the High-End System of Care Director of the Department for Children and Families of the Family Services Division, the Director of the Office of Child, Youth, and Family Advocate, the Adolescent Services Director of the Department for Children and Families Family Services Division, the Executive Director of the Office of Racial Equity, the Legislative Council, General Counsel, the Department of Public Safety, a Policy Council for Human Rights for Kids, the Executive Director of the Vermont Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, the Legislative Attorney for the Vermont Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, the Deputy Defender General and Chief Juvenile Defender of the Defender General's Office, the Deputy Commissioner of the Family Services Division of the Department for Children and Families, the Chair of the Council for Equitable Youth Justice, and the Chief Superior Judge of the Vermont Judiciary. H2 provides important updates to the age of individuals subject to juvenile delinquency proceedings as opposed to criminal proceedings. It also pauses the next important step in Vermont's Raise the Age initiative, given the reality that more work is needed before we take that step. The committee vote was 7-2, and I ask for your support.
Members, at this time, we will recess for caucuses. The Democrats will be caucusing in room 11, and the Republicans will be caucusing in room 10. The House will now still stand in recess until the fall of the gavel at 2:30.